Okay, good morning. Week two. We'll see, hopefully not too many drop-offs so we can sustain this and grow Mikhail Elfai. We are doing today Dalet Amud Beis. In Brachos, we're starting with the last line on Dalet Amud Aleph. V'chachamim imrim ad chatzos. Remember, the Mishnah told us that there was a few machlokes between Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Gamliel, and the Chachamim as to when one is allowed to say Kriya Shema Shel Arvis. The opinion of the Chachamim was the middle opinion. You could say Shema at night until Chatzos. Says the Gemara, Chachamim Keman Svir Lahu. Who are the Chachamim holding like? Ik Rebbe Lezer Svir Lahu. If the Chachamim are really holding like Rebbe Lezer, meaning that the Shach B'chal is really when you go to sleep. So then, says the Gemara, Lemek Rebbe Lezer. Then let them say that they hold like Rebbe Lezer, meaning maybe they have a more expensive time when people go to sleep, but let them say that fundamentally they're holding like the sheet of Rebbe Lezer. Rabbi Gamliel, as we turn the page. And if we're holding like Rabbi Gamliel, that in fact they have until Avois. So then labor Rabbi Gamliel. Then let's say that in fact we hold like Rabbi Gamliel. Let the Chacham be clear as to what their shita is. So the Gemara Rabbi Gamliel who really the opinion of the Chachamim is like Rabbi Gamliel. In other words, that when are you allowed to say Kriya Shema of Arvis? The whole time throughout the duration of the evening, not merely when you go to sleep, but the whole time that people are sleeping, which would mean that you have the whole evening in order to be able to say Kriya Shema of Arvis. So Lo'elam Rabbi Gamliel, they really hold like Rabbi Gamliel. Amri ad Chatzos, and this that they're saying you only have Shema at night until Chatzos is in order to be able to keep a person distant from doing an aver. Says Rashi, going back to Dalam and Alf on the bottom. Says Rashi, Chacham Kiman Sir, who do the Chacham hold like B'mashmoyes B'shach B'chal Mabatar. When we're talking about the Mashmoyes, the word B'shach B'chal, that it says Ikar Blazer Sirlu, if in fact you hold like Blazer, this Leba Shach B'chal. Calls man shebnei adam oiskin leilech v'lishkav zem maknav zem macher. You have different people. They go to sleep at different times. Some people go to sleep earlier. Some people go to sleep later. So lemek Rabbi Lezer. Then let's say that we are going like the opinion of Lezer. Let's say the Chacham in fact held like a Lezer. The say Omar Sefer Shmo Rishana of the Vad Kol Shadai Delishin Kvar Shacha B'Yashin. So let's say that they held like Rabbi Lezer. That don't say that until the way Rashi's making it out. Not exactly the way I said it. The way Rashi's making it out is that you have. But they should say the opinion of Chacham is that you have only until the Sefer Shmo Rishana. I'm not sure that's necessarily have to be like a Blazer exact, but they have a shorter time period because fundamentally, if you go with the opinion of Blazer, when people are going to sleep, people go to sleep at different times. In those days, presumably people went to sleep a bit earlier because of the fact that they didn't have electricity, they had candles, etc. So fundamentally, maybe people went to bed a bit later than Rebbe Lezer. So Rebbe Lezer is saying that the Zman of Shchiva is until Sefer Shmo Rishon. Maybe that will come out a little bit later. Rashi seems to say that if we're going to say Rebbe Lezer, it means fundamentally like Rebbe Lezer. That in fact, when is the time that you will be able to say Shema until? You're able to say Shema until only the Sefer Shmo Rishon, according to the way Rashi wants to understand it. Says the Gemara. Says Rashi. We're finishing on Dalar Amanal, the last Rashi. Rashi says, "E Kabbalah Tefillah the Islam Sharp Chol Man Sheminem Oiskin Leilach Velish Kavzem Makim Zem Achim Lem Kabbalah Dam Sefer Shmur Rishon the Badi Kol Shadat Lishin Kvar Shach Aviyot." Everybody by that time or whatever have already gone to sleep. Continues on Rashi and Dalam Abayz. V Kabbalah Gamliel Tzvirlu. If we're going back with Rabbi Gamliel, not going with Rabbi Lezer, so it means you have until Allah is the Mashma B'Shach B'Chol Kol Mashma Miyam Sheikh Miyesh B'Chlal Hazek Kol Alayla. The Mashma the Shchiva means the entirety of the time that people are sleeping, and people are sleeping a whole night. So you haven't said they have the ability to say Shema throughout the duration of the evening. So Leimer Kirab Gamliel. Then let's say that in fact the Shita of the Chacham is like Rabbi Gamliel, and then Adam Shach you have Mamsh until Amud Shacha. So the Gemara says that Lo'elam, who do we hold like? We're on the top of Dalam Abayz. We hold like the Chacham hold like Rabbi Gamliel. They have until Alois. Elamai, why don't they say Alois? They don't say Alois because they want to keep people from doing Averses. Because the person is going to be relying on the extra time that he has, as we're about to see in a Brisa. So fundamentally, Rabbi Gamliel was not wrong. In other words, remember back in the Mishnah on Beis, Rabbi Gamliel is not wrong when Rabbi Gamliel says that in fact Gamliel told his children, "You have until Allah. Don't worry about it, my kids. Right? You came back late from the party. You can still say Shema." He said, because in fact the Chachamim said that you have until Chatzos only l'harchik adam and aver. But really, they agree with me. You have until Allah. Rabbi Gamliel said that, and now the Gemara is agreeing with the way Rabbi Gamliel understood it. Okay, continues the Gemara. We are on Dalet Amud Beis, 4 lines down, 5 lines down. Yeah. Today, Shalai. So we. I'm sorry. 4 lines down. Tanya, as we have in a brisa. The rabbis, they made a fence. They made a protective fence in order to protect their words from being violated. Today, as we have in this brisa, what does it mean? A person might have otherwise, if the chacham didn't make a siyag around their words, it may have happened that a person would have come home from the Sada at night, right? People were farmhands. And he would say, look, I'm going to go home. I'm going to eat a bit. I'm going to drink a bit. Just to note, the Yerushalmi here in Brachot's first parak, the Yerushalmi points out that that's how the Geula is going to be. The Geula Shlema is going to be kimma kimma. It's going to happen slowly, ma'at ma'at, like the way the dawn comes in the morning. Slowly, these things don't happen in one fell swoop. This has a lot of Zionisha implications, which we're not getting into right now. I'm just leaving it for that. Yeah, but it happens to the Yerushalmi and Brachot, so therefore we have to mention it. Yeah, okay. Continues the Gemara. Ve'ishan kemo, he's going to say, look, I'm going to take a little shtickle a nap. And after that, I'm going to say the Shema, Vespal, and I'm going to daven. And he's going to fall asleep. He's going to sleep all night. And we want to avoid this. We want to avoid people being complacent and not being mekayim, their mitzvahs that they're required to do. So therefore, by saying that they have only a limited amount of time, what's a person instead going to do? He's going to change his actions. I just say at one tangential point, the Torah has the ability to change our temperature. I remember once being stuck on a road, Erev Shabbos, on the 3, like one of these crazy traffic days, and Mamish couldn't move, and it's like Mamish hitting the 18 minutes, and I'm like, my blood pressure is jumping, right? And so what I did then is I went on the side of the road, and the service lane, not the service lane, but the police lane, where you're not supposed to use the Shabbos lane. I went on the Shabbos lane, and I drove home. And I hear the beeping of the people like into the chutzpah. I have an appointment to keep. Yeah. So the Torah changes your behavior. Then you're not supposed to be on the road right before Shabbos. You're supposed to figure a way out. Obviously, sometimes you're in earnest. Okay. So the same thing here. You come home at night. You don't say, look, I'm going to be relaxed. No. You have a Zman Kriyashma. You got to make it. So what are you going to do? You're going to instead do the following. A person's going to come home at night. He's going to go first to shul. If he's going to be used to reading the Tanakh, he's going to study that. If he knows the Mishnah, he'll study that. And then he's going to say the Shema and daven. And then he's going to what? Come home and eat. And whoever violates the words of the rabbis is liable for the death penalty. This is the Gemara. We have a lot to speak out of it, but let's first start with Rashi. Says Rashi, let's finish the Gemara to the 2 dots. Okay. So it continues the Gemara. So why is it over here we say that a person violates the words of the rabbis is chayav misa, and normally you don't say such a thing? One possible answer is because over here you're fighting against sleep. Fighting against sleep, especially if you have any teenage boys, you'll know what I'm talking about. Maybe you were once a teenage boy. It's very hard to fight against sleep. You know, you knock on the door once, twice. My kids are not listening to the recording. It's fine. But like the truth is, it's not so easy to get people up. So therefore, we have to be, in order to make people aware that this is sufficiently serious, what we do is we mechazik the gezerah against it. We say, Imam Shchayev Nisa, yeah? Another possible answer is so coming against the man Omar holds that Tfilas Arbis is a reshus. You see from here that it's a chayv. Later on, we'll discuss that there is a machlekes on the Gemara Chav Zayin Amud Beis becomes the famous story. The third time Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Shua got into a fight, Rabbi Gamliel was deposed, Rabbi Ben Azariah got into place. The whole machlokes was started by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and it was on the substantive issue about whether or not tefillas arvis was a rishus or not. Rabbi Shua held that back tefillas arvis was a rishus, and Rabbi Gamliel held that it was a chayva. We will talk a little bit more about it maybe if we have a few minutes. Okay, so here we are. Rashi. Says Rashi, the first answer to the Gemara, Mishum Einashino. What's the issue? Right, since Einashina could grab onto him and it's going to be hard to fight against, so therefore the way we deal with it is we make a more severe punishment. That is the first answer to the Gemara. The second answer to the Gemara is as Rashi explains in the Kamam and Perek Tfilas HaShachar, we're going to see that there was a machlekes about this. Okay. Tesis. Tesis says the Kriyas Shema Mispalel. What's it mean? A person's going to come to the Beis Medrash, the Beis Knesset, and he's going to say Shema, and he's going to learn the Mishnah. If he, whatever, he's more expert, and then he's going to say the Kriyas Shema and daven. Says Tesis. Mikamash Mashe. Mishosh Yezman Kriyash Masha Lailo Shein Lechel Sudat Sheikar Kriyash Mispal It's mashma that a person shouldn't go ahead and make a meal before he says over the Shema. Back Shulchan Aruch Tur in Aruch Chaim Reish Lamed Hey passing like this that the Shulchan Aruch used a lashon Chatzi Shah, half an hour before there's man Kriyash Shema, a person shouldn't be eating. So and it's very partial to us, right? That comes to Kiddush Friday night, then we're going to eat before Kiddush, no. And before Abdullah, no. These are simple things everyone knows, yeah? B'zikas Chametz, Hadlakas Ner Chanukah, Kriyas Megillah. There's a lot of times we say, there's a certain thing. How about the Shmor Get a Chasana? The Shmor Get a Chasana is man Kriyas Shema is coming, which is going to win. The Shmor always wins. No, you ever see a place that say, no, Shemorg, let's stop the Shemorg. Now at half an hour before the Zman, we have to stop. We have to say the Shema. And I never saw it. The ones that Meir of Minions after the Shemorg, after the Chuppah. Yeah, you can't stop the Shemorg. What does it mean? How did it happen? So I say like this. If you look there in the Shulchan Aruch says half an hour before Ma'ariv, you're not allowed to eat. That's what says Shulchan Aruch. I go so far as to tell you, bring down the kids of Shulchan Aruch, you're not even allowed to learn. Half an hour before the Zman of Kishma, you're not even allowed to learn. Okay, now let's break that down. Don't get nervous. Like, it's a mitzvah now not to learn. Like Nittel Nacht. You're not allowed to. No, you're allowed to. It's fine. Relax. What do we say? The Taz note. Okay, the Taz is very clear. We don't say half an hour. We say samach. There is true that there are Rishonim who say a period of time before, which we're saying is a half an hour, the way Shulchan Aruch brings down. The Taz says only a minute. I tell you, the Mishnah Berurah disagrees with the Taz. The Mishnah Berurah says that all the places can disagree with the Taz, so we say half an hour. But says the Mishnah Berurah, but that's only by food, but not by learning. Obviously, by learning, you have to learn. You don't stop learning half an hour before. You keep on learning all the way. But when it becomes man, then you have to say Shema. Why are you still learning? We're not in a time where we will see these Gemaras in different places in Shas, that there were certain rabbis that for them to say the Shema, to get into a whole tefillah was like Bittul Torah. So Rebbe was giving a shir, as Mak Shema, he would like wave his hand over his eyes, right? But even Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, we know that he used to come out of the ground, and he was in the ground the whole day, right, studying. But he would come out to say to David. Yeah, so there were times that a person ought to stop his learning to become various mitzvahs, including the Shema is one of them. So this is not an issue, says the Mishnah. You don't stop learning half an hour. But if it's my Kriyas, then you should be able to focus on doing the mitzvah, and then you can go back to your learning. That's number one. Number two, we should also note that what is the reason that people are go to the Shmorg and they're not so worried about Zman Kriyas Shema? The answer is as follows. We're saying over here that we don't want a person, what it tastes is Lashon HaTosfos, she'ein lo lechol seuda ad sheikar Kriyas Shema. Is a Shmorga Suda? I mean, certain chasanas, maybe. But a Shmorga is not a Suda. It's Whether or not you're permitted to stand and eat around like that is not the topic. But a shmorg is not a suda. Says the Magen Avraham, Te'ima could be mutter. Te'ima could be mutter. The Trumas Hadeshen, the Magen Avraham brings down the Trumas Hadeshen. The Trumas Hadeshen says author. But the Magen Avraham is mitzadeh lahakel that Te'ima is mutter. The Taz also says Te'ima is mutter. So it comes out of Te'ima is mutter. And a shmorg is Te'ima. So when you're at a chasana next time and it's like the shmorg is like, we're now half an hour before my Kriya Shema, and you're wondering maybe I should stop eating and like make a brachot and everybody should know it's a half an hour before my Kriya Shema. Yesh ami lismach to keep on eating. And more than that, there are places going to bring down, if you have a normal cycle, a normal zman of when you're always davening and learning and eating and this and that, it's normal. So then you don't have to be so worried. If you there's 100% the certainty at every chasana after the chuppah that there's going to be a ma'ariv, there's going to be shema, you don't have to worry. That's why people are able to rely either number one, because te'ima may be mutter, which according to certain poskim it is, or number two, because there's a designated driver, for the people who come out of the chasana, there's a designated ma'ariv minyan. Has there been a chasana they don't have a ma'ariv? They're always going to have a ma'ariv. And you can rely on that. You don't have to worry about it. Those are the two possible ways. Fine. Number one. Number two, there's a tshuva from the Chidah. The Chidah writes in the Yosef Aimed something that I think is contradicted by this Gemara. It's one of my favorite type of topics. You say about not learning. I'm interested in the ones who say you're not allowed to learn. What you're not allowed to learn. So the Chidah writes, you're not allowed to learn Tanakh at night. Why not allowed to learn Tanakh at night? You're nodding. You know this one. Why not allowed to learn Tanakh at night? Huh? The story. You don't like to tell fairy tales? No story. Huh? Put you to sleep. It's like telling a kid a story before you go to sleep. Fine. Why not allowed to learn Tanakh at night? Says the Chidah. The basis of a medrash. There's two Tanchumas. Tanchuma says like this. Number one, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was learning with the Rebbeinu Shalom by the 40 days, 40 nights, so how did he know if it was day or night? Because the Rebbeinu Shalom would teach him Teresh B'Tzav by day and Teresh B'Al Peh at night. That's how Moshe Rabbeinu knew when it was day and when it was night. Another and the Chidah point says that he's quoting from an Arizal that it's Shas that Teresh B'Tzav is din and the night do on Shas Rachamim. That's his. Can you do the reverse? No, Teresh B'Al Peh always is mutter. It's always mutter. Yeah. Okay. So the other Medrash Tanchuma says that so I said Moshe Rabbeinu was taught Teresh B'Tzav in the day and he was taught Teresh B'Al Peh at night. But I've always thought that this Gemara was a shaila on this Chidah. Look at the Gemara again. What did the Gemara say? The Gemara said that the guy came home. I'm sorry, instead of going home, he went to the shul. What did he do in the shul? If he was normal to read, which Kriya here is referring to Kriya of Tanakh, as opposed to Mishnah, which is going to be the next part. Does Mashmi is allowed to learn Tanakh at night? Huh? He's waiting for it to become night. Right, very good. What is Yosef saying? Let's be clear. The Gemara has opened up here a point. The person came home from the Sadeh. The basic says, why didn't it say that he came from the field and then he was Keri Kriyash Muspal? Why did it say he's first Keri or his first Shaina? Why does it say that? Why is Keri and Shaina coming before Kriyash Muspal? Must be that it wasn't exactly the time. It must be the time hadn't yet started for Shema and Shemona Esrei. Yes? Makes sense? Nevertheless, I'm still clear that this is a Shaila on the Chidah because of the fact that he's learning, he's rugged to be Kaireh, he's being Kaireh, samuch to the whatever the Zman is. We're talking about a half an hour before it says, ready bein Hashmashes. I mean, and we want to be machmir, not to learn Tanakh. We don't want to get too close.
Maybe prayer is not really learning; it's just reading.
Who's reading Tanakh? That's right there. Rabbi Chanina Kara is known in Shas. Rabbi Chanina Kara is somebody who studied Tanakh. Right, Rabbi Chanina Kara we have many times in Shas. Okay, anyhow, that was the kasha I always had on the Chidah. I have many questions from many Gemaras about this. It's not the only one, but this is I thought I'll mention here is one of the rayas that I have against this shita. I should mention, just to be clear, in case anybody walks away, there's no one Shulchan Aruch it's brought down. It's us to learn Tanakh at night. Just to be clear, in case you were wondering, you had a big taiva to learn Yirmiyahu at night, and you're like, no, I can't because I heard Yesh be lisbach to be able to study Torah at night, even if it's Tanakh. Yeah. Okay. Continues the Gemara. So we're at the two dots. Omar Mar. So we just quoted. Oh, and I should also mention that we'll cover it in the next thesis. Okay. Omar Mar. Perek Kriya Shema U'Mispalel. The mission, the brisa that we had just brought down, told us that a person, when they come home from the field, they're going to go to the Beis Knesses and they're going to go learn a bit, and then they're going to daven. They're going to say Shema and then daven. Mesayeli Rabbi Yechanan. This is a riot to Rabbi Yechanan. Dam Rabbi Yechanan. What did Rabbi Yechanan say? Ezehu b'nei Olam haba. Who is somebody who's going to be deserving of Olam haba? Zeh semech gula tefillah shel arvis. Somebody who's semech gula to tefillah by night. We know that you semech gula to tefillah by day, right? That's why by Gal Yisrael in the morning, right? And this Rosh Chodesh, you have to do two claps, to remind people it's Yal V'Yoveh. One clap is not sufficient. Two claps, but you don't say. That's a joke. You don't say it's too early. You don't say Yal V'Yoveh, right? Why don't say Yal V'Yoveh? And if there's a gabbai or somebody who's making the claps, he doesn't know, he says, Yal v'yavai, and everybody's like, shh. Why do you have to say shh? Because you have to be soymech gula to tefillah. Smichas gula to tefillah is a requirement by Shachris. What about by Ma'ariv? Says Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan says you have to do it by Ma'ariv too, not just by Shachris. Rabbi Shubin Levi Omer, tefillas be'emtza tiknum. No. Rabbi Shubin Levi disagrees. He says the tefillas were put in between the two shmas. You say Shema in the morning and the Shema in the evening, and the three Shemana Esrei, they come in between. So there's no idea of being Semech Gula to Tefillah, the way Rabbi Yechanan says it. What's the machlokes between Rabbi Yechanan and Shubin Levi? Iba Yisei Mekor, Iba Yisei Mesvar. Either I could tell you it's a machlokes in Pasuk, or I could tell you it's a machlokes in Svar. Now, I can't get you here a full topic. This is literally a Shas topic, and that is, sometimes the Gemara says the opposite. Sometimes the Gemara says it's a svar, lama likra. Right? Look at the Gemara Subaschav Beis. It's a svar. What I need a pasuk for? Here the Gemara is telling you it's both. Right? Why is the Gemara telling you that it's both? So perhaps you're going to say that maybe the svar is not so strong. I don't know. We'll explain. Continues the Gemara. What's the machlokes between Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Shimon Levi? If we say that it's a svara, Rabbi Yechanan savar gula me'urta namehave, because Rabbi Yechanan holds that there was a gula even at night. El gula maliyasule have el tzafra, but the real gula wasn't until the day. Right? If you look at the pasuk, carefully, you'll see a steer in the psukim, or at least what seems to be a steer in the psukim. On the one hand, we know in Machas HaPesach Yotzei Bnei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim. On the one hand, we said that they left by day. On the other hand, we know that they're compared Lailu V'Avodav, right? And the pasuk seems to indicate that they left at night. So which one is it? Did they leave by night or by day? So Rabbi Yechanan is explaining what we know to be the Pashup Shad. Of course, they didn't leave until the daytime. However, the actual freedom, Pari's knocking on the doors at night in pajamas. He's telling them, leave, leave, leave. They're already free to go. But remember, they still have to go to all the Egyptian homes and get all the jewelry from there. And they have to, make haste, because the Egyptians are pounding on the door. But they don't actually leave Mitzrayim until they go and get all the Kesef, Zav, Smoles, Mishal, Isha, Mishchento. They have to do all that beforehand. That takes some time. Right? While they were already prepared to go, because they already knew beforehand, they were not going to the Egyptian homes before Magas Becheres. Magas Becheres only happened at Chatzos. It happened in the springtime, in the Ikwe, in the area that is near the equator. So you can imagine, after Chatzos, after the Pari gets home, and telling everybody to their homes to tell them to all leave. He has to go from his palace to Goshen, etc. So it takes some time. They have to go to the Egyptian homes. They have to get the stuff. So by the time everybody's ready to go, it's already by the day. Because Rabbi Yochanan is saying Geula happens. Of course, it's already they're free at night, but the actual leaving, the Yitzia, happens by day. So for Rabbi Yochanan, that's sufficient to say that you should be Semer Geula to Tefillah also by night. Rabbi Shua Levi says no. Rabbi Shua Levi saw Vakevan B'lei Havi El Mitzafra, since they only actually left by day. Like Havi Gula Mal Yisam. We don't call that a Gula Mal Yisam. This is we don't therefore need to be Semer Gula to Tefillah at night. This is the opinion of Rabbi Shua Levi. What's the argument about the psukim? All I can tell you that the argument is based upon the psukim. What does it mean? They're both darshan in the same pasuk. The pasuk tells us that when they would lie down and when they would get up, Rabbi Yochanan is going to make a hekesh from the going to sleep to the daytime. Just like in the morning we have Kriya Shema, then we have Tefillah. So it's why now we have to have the Kriya Shema and then the Tefillah. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi disagrees. Rabbi Shimon Levi says, yeah, we're Magash Shriva L'Kima, but not in the way you think. Just like in the morning, you have Kriya Shema Samach to the getting up. So in the evening, you have Kriya Shema Samach to going to sleep. This is the machlokes from Rabbi Yochanan Shum Levi. If you Seimech Geula to Tefillah at night or not, Iba Yisema to machlokes in Tzvar, Iba Yisema to machlokes in Kra. Continues the Gemara. Mosim Mar Brei de Ravina. Mar Brei de Ravina ask a Shiloh. What's the question? Later on, the Gemara and Yudalf are going to say you have a requirement to say Birchas Kriya Shema, and at night there's 2 Birchas of Kriya Shema before the Shema and 2 Birchas Kriya Shema after the Shema. And if you're going to say that we paskin here like Rabbi Yochanan over Rabbi Shimon Levi, that's requiring to be Seimech Gula to Tefillah. I don't understand. Where's the smichas of Geula to Tefillah? What's the problem? Gula Tefillah da boilen meimar ashkivenu. He has to ashkivenu. He has to ashkivenu. Where's the smichas? You hear? Hashkivenu is not Gal Yisrael. It should be a Gal Yisrael and Shemoneh Esrei. We're saying Hashkivenu, and the Gemara, and for the Gemara, once we already explained, once we already mitakin Hashkivenu, so we explained that this is like a Gula Arichta. In other words, it's part of Gal Yisrael. It's part of it. It's like one long Gula. It's like one long blessing about Gula. And the Gemara says, you don't make an argument that I'm just being very opportunistic to say this. No. Because if you don't say it, Shachas, Heichem, Matzis, Samach, by Shachas, everybody agrees that you have to be Samech. And can you imagine? V'ham Rabbi Yochanan himself says, B'tchila oimer Hashem svasei tiftach, v'b'seif ohu oimer yiru atzen meifi. So how do you have smichas of Gula to Tefillah by Shachas? Where everyone agrees, even Shimon Levi agrees, you have to have smichas Gula to Tefillah. You hear the question? You don't have smichas Gula to Tefillah because you say Hashem svasei tiftach. And for the Gemara, no. Must be El Hasan came to Kin Rabban Lemem Hashem Svasei Tiftach Tefillah Arichta Damya. Achanami came to Kin Rabban Lemem Hashkivenu Kigula Arichta Damya. Must be that it's considered like a Gula Arichta, like a long Gula. So too, it's like a long Tefillah, and they're effectively not a contradiction to the idea of being Semech Gula to Tefillah by the night by saying Hashkivenu in the same way that it's not a contradiction. I mean, Semech Gula to Tefillah by saying Hashem Svasei Tiftach. This is the Gemara until the 2 dots. You're jumping. Okay, Taisus, very good. Taisus asked the kasha. Fine, we'll do Taisus. Maybe we'll skip Rashi then. Okay, fine. I'll just say one thing about the Rashi, because there's one Rashi here that's nice to see. It's bringing down the Yerushalmi. Look at the big Rashi in Zeh HaSoimech. Not a huge Rashi, just the bigger Rashi. Zeh HaSoimech. You see the Rashi V'chol Shekain, the Shachris. You see that? Everybody agrees by Shachris, you have to be Sevach. Because everyone agrees the main Gula was by Shachris. Where do you get this idea of being Sevach Gula to Tefillah? Ramza Dav B'Sefer Tehillim. It's a hint in Tehillim. The Chsiv Hashem Tzuri V'Garali. Right? Hashem is my rock, and He is my Redeemer. Next to that is the pasuk, Hashem should answer me. So we have the geula for the tefillah. So too by us. V'amina bebrachas Yerushalmi, and Rashi brings down Yerushalmi, another Yerushalmi from Rashi. Misha en semach geula tefillah. What is somebody who's not semach geula to tefillah? What's he compared to? Lo yaveh sham melech, like the person who's a friend of the king. And what happens? He comes and knocks on the door. The king comes out and he finds that the guy's gone. So the king also leaves. How should you act? You don't go over to somebody, knock on the door, and then leave, right? You go and you knock on the door, and you open the door, and the person is there, and you're schmoozing. And in this case, what the Rebbeinu Shalom is, as it were, kaviyachol, elf alfi havdalas. You first maratz the Rebbeinu Shalom, you say all the praises of the geula, and Rebbeinu Shalom did unbelievable things, and then after at your maratza, that's when you ask. There are other parallels, but I can't get into them at the moment, but Hamay and Yuvin, those who understand what those parallels are, in areas of marital life, the Gemara brings down literally the same kind of an idea. Now we go to the Tosfos. Says Tosfos as follows: a big important halachic Tosfos over here. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan Ezel ben Olam Haba. So Tosfos says, Hashkifenu, Gula Rechta. What about another problem? Vanu Sharmim Yireinenu, Psukim Achem Achar Hashkifenu. We say all these other things called Baruch Hashem Lo'ilam. I mean, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, you don't say it. But if you're in America, you say these kind of things. And isn't that a problem? That says Teitzves, Nira Hayel Tekinu Levu Rabban Havle Gula Rechta. You have to say this also Gula Rechta. The Kinu Lem Zeh Shabtech Kach. Yispal Chaver Gamu V'lo Yechem Mifsek Nes. That Shigma Kolach Tefillah. So that Baruch Hashem, the bracha after Ashkivenu, Baruch Hashem La'olam, was set up, and also people shouldn't be davening at different times and having people leave early, whatever. It may be nerve-wracking when the person's going to be alone, walking back. So they sort of slowed it down by having that extra additional prayer so that everybody can catch up. We are now going to consider that part of the Gula Richta, just like Ashkivenu. Fine. Then Tosfos continues. There's another advantage to saying that Begam Yesh Ba'osim Psukim Yudchas Asgars connected Yudchas Brachot Shmona Esrei. There's Yudchas Asgars connected Yudchas Brachot Shmona Esrei. V'agav shetiknu loim Ba'osim Psukim tiknu loim B'chasim Sheyuranenu. And once they already had this, then we said Yuranenu as well. Continues the Gemara Tosfos. V'halach Rabbi Yochanan the Brisa Messiah Le V'chein Pasuk Halachas Gedolos. Tosfos says that the halach is like Rabbi Yochanan. Then in fact we have to be said with Gula to Tefillah. That's how we do it. We say Shema and all the brachas about Gula, and then we say Shemona Esrei, just like Rabbi Yochanan, not like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And this is how the Bahag passes, and how we pass on the halacha. Ve'im kain yesh li zoyer sheloi l'saber ben Gula the arvis l'Shemona Esrei. Then if you see, then it's important according to Rabbi Yochanan to be saying with Gula to Tefillah. Then it shouldn't be mafsek at night. And how many people have heard the Gabbai on Rosh Chodesh at night when he claps? He also says Yal V'Yoveh, right? The Gabbai says Yal V'Yoveh at night. Right? He doesn't not say anything. Yet you see here from Tosfos that there is an inyan here not to be talking between Gula and Tefillah. Is that okay? Should you tell the Gabbai doesn't know what he's doing? Continues Tosfos. Umiu b'seder Amgun, right? In the Siddur from Amgun, what did he write? He said, Pirish Masha'anu Imam Kaddish. Yes, your question? Yes, yeah. This that we say Kaddish between, right? We've gone from Gula to Mishem Gula to Tefillah. Now we have one Hashkivenu. Now we have Baruch Hashem Lo'ilam. Now we have Kaddish. So it says I'm going. You know why we do that? Because we want to show you that Tefillas Arvis is Rishos. Now here I have only a few minutes, so I'm going to very quickly go through some of which we'll see again in Chav Zayin. The Gemara says Rabbi Gamliel holds it to Chayva, Rabbi Shua holds it to Rishus. Rav, in one version of the Gemara, there's Rav there. Tosfos seem to think maybe Rabbi Yochanan is there too. Others seem to think maybe Shmuel's there. I don't know who's there. On the side of the Gemara, you look on Chav Zayin, it says Rav. That's for sure. That Rav says it's a Rishus. But the Gemara brings down Abai and Rava. Abai holds the Chayva and Rava holds the Rishus. We know the halacha in Shas is it's always like Rava, except where Yal Kagam, right? So that means that we pass like Rava. Then what is it? It's a Rishus. Arvis is a Rishus. So Rabbi Amgun is saying, we know why we are saying Kaddish. We're saying Kaddish to ensure that you understand it's a Rishus. Myra is a Rishus. You didn't know I had some overtones with the Kaddish and the Myra. That's what Tosfos is saying. Now, Taisus says, unbelievable. This Taisus. Look at the next line. Taisus is not right, not correct to say that. The Rabbi Amud is wrong because Rabbi Yechon Tfilas Arvis Chayva. Rabbi Yechon holds that Tfilas Arvis is the Chayv. The Plukti, the Rav, Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Yechon. It's a Machlis and Rav, Rabbi Yechon. I guess that someone wants to say Rabbi Yechon over there. I don't see Rabbi Yechon in the slide of the Gemara, but whatever it is, here it's clear that Rabbi Yechon holds you have to be Sam Gula to Tefillah. It sounds like Rabbi Yechon would say it's what? Ma'ariv is a Rishus or a Chayva. Mashman it's a Chayva. It says Taisus. Therefore, you can't say Rav Amud. You're not saying Kash because it's a Rishus. It has to be a Chayva, and that would count to Rabbi Yechon. We pass like Rabbi Yechon over Rav. And therefore, the halacha is that it's a chayva. That's what Taisus seems to be indicating over here. B'nochin l'hachmir, says Taisus, it is good to be machmir, ulizar l'saber in time, and to be careful not to speak in between. V'yitem makash elchasa helchasa. You're going to ask me now, 1 second. I have a problem. Because that Gemara later on is the Kamel Tfilas Arvis Rishus. That's for sure. The Gemara later on is going like Abai and Rava. At least one version of the Gemara that we have. And Rava says to Rishus, we don't pass like a buy except for Yal Kigam, so it must be it's a Rishus. And over here we're saying you have to be Sem Gul to feel, which is Mashman, it's a Chayva. It's Mashman, it's a Stira. On the one hand, Meir is a Chayva, and on the other hand, it's a Rishus. We are being Sem Gul to saying you have to go to Shul, you have to do all these things because it's a Chayva. On the other hand, we're telling you it's a Rishus. Which one is it? Says Taisves. And over here we're passing like Brachot, and we're saying it's a Chayva, it's a Rachlam, I feel each serving Rabbi Yechon and Karav. We have to say that even if we hold either Fili Sever Rabbi Yechon and Karav, even if Rabbi Yechon held like Rav, the Amar Rishos, that he said the Marav is really Rishos, nevertheless it would still require being Semach Gul to Tefillah. So we should also be Semach. Even if Rabbi Yechon held like Rav that it's really Rishos, nevertheless we would still want to be Semach Gula to Tefillah and make it out as a smicha. Now I want to point out, if you look at Taisus and Chav Zayin, to literally 2-line Taisus, we'll just finish the Taisus there. Taisus and Chav Zayin says, "Hilchos lakavasei derav." Look at the 2-line Taisus. V'nirad l'kach tiknu psukim v'kadosh ben Gula Tefillah d'Rishosu. Says Taisus, why did we mitaken these psukim in between? Because the Rishos. See the bottom Taisus and Chav Zayin. Who said that it's a Ram Goyin? The Torah said it here that Ram Goyin is wrong. No, it's unbelievable, right? You see that or no? Funny? I'm not getting enough smirks. Okay, fine. Moving on. We have to finish up the Amud over here. It says the Gemara like this. Amar Belezer, yeah? Amar Belezer, Amar Ravina, Kolo Emer Tilo Dav B'choyim Shalishpam Muvtach L'Shu Ben Al-Mahaba. Somebody who says Ashrei 3 times a day is muftach that he is going to be somebody who's going to get Olam Haba. My timer, what's the reason that we know he's for sure he's going to get Olam Haba? The Elaim Mishum the East of Aleph Beis, if it's because the Ashri has Aleph Beis, name Ashri Timerderch, the Asir B'Tamya. So then he should say, kill him kufir test. You imagine you have to say tell him kufir test every day, Oyvei, right? That's like serious work, yeah? So, but the Gemara is saying if Aleph Beis, if saying things in the nice order is going to get you be a better Olam Haba, so say Asher Timir Derech, that gets you 8 times. Asher Timir Derech, the Asher B'Tamya Apen El Mishum Deis B'Pesach Sedech. Asher has another incredible thing. It has Pesach Sedech. So name Halal Gadol. So say Halal. I'm not getting into the sugi right now. I don't have time now about saying Halal too often. That is, we'll get to that another time. But what's the big advantage of Halal Gadol? The Sibbe Nice and Lechem L'Chol Basar. El Mishum Deis B'Tarti. Asher has 2 wonderful advantages. On the one hand, it has Aleph Beis. On the other hand, it also has the ability to say Noisin Lechem B'Chabas or Pesach Sedech. Rabbi Yechon Ibn Malay Nemar. Right, and remember, why do we bring down this? We're continuing the Rebbe and Ravina, right? Because of the fact that we did not bring him in before. So the question is, huh? Say it again. Yeah, so that's the reason we're continuing. Not because of the same Maimon, but the next Maimon, the Gemara is going to be also from Rebbe Ravina. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yechon, Neimalei never nun be'ashrei, a separate topic. Why do we not say nun in ashrei? It has in there the falling, unfortunately, the Seni Yisrael, which we're saying about ourselves. You know, the Siv Nafla, it says kum suas Yisrael. Because it says Nafla, if they fell, they say kum, they would not get up against suas Yisrael. That's a Shabbat Marava. In the West, they would read it differently. In Israel, they would write it differently. They would put in a pisuk in the pasuk. Mitarti le hacha. This is the way they would do it. Nafla v'lo yisef lin polad. They wouldn't fall again. Kum suas Yisrael. That's they should get up. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak afilu hachi chazar David samchem Ruach Hakodesh. David HaMelech was chazar and saw in Ruach HaKodesh this problem of the Jewish people falling. And how did he do it? And the word right in the pasuk right next to it, he says Semech Hashem l'chol hanoifelim. That's how he got in the nud, and he's lifting up all the people that have otherwise fallen. Like I said, Rabbi Elazar Ravina already said something, so we bring him down again. There's no connection to the previous Gemara, but the idea that by Michal, who we know is a greater Malach than Gabriel, it says by Michal, the Ilum Michal, Ksiv Ayof Elai Echo Menatzrafim, V'il Gabriel Gabriel, Ksiv Ish Gabriel Asher Isi B'Chazayin B'Tchila Moef Bayof. So it says two lashons of Ayof. 2 times he had to swoop in order to fly. Michal only 1 time. My mashman da hay echon Michal. Who Rabbi Yechon Asi Echad Echad Ksiv Hachav Ayof Elai Echo Menatzrafim Ksiv Hasam V'nei Michal Echo Menatzram Rishonim. That is different angels takes different amount of times in order to be able to fly. By Michal, it takes 1 time to 1 flapping of the wings, whatever the celestial wings are. By Gabriel, 2 times. Elio 4 times. Malchamavet 8 times. Except by Mishasam Agefa, then he only does it in 1 time. One last point on the parsha. And this week, Sheni, we learn about that Sarah laughed. And Avram confronts her, why did she laugh? She says, I didn't laugh. He says, no, you did laugh. Hashem told him that he laughed. What's the reason that Hashem told him that he laughed? He said, because she said, Adoni's Zaken. That's not what had happened. She had said Adoni's Zaken. And he says that she's old. Why? Because from here we learn out that white lies in a marriage are fantastic and wonderful and required. Have a wonderful day.